Hello and thank you for coming to check this out. So today, with these two examples that you can see here, we're going to look at animating bending layers in Motion. So for something like this, that would be a very complex project. We would want to use a plugin, something like Motion VFX's mPuppet. But what I want to show you today is that there is scope to do a few things in Motion and do them quite well. And I just want to point you in those directions. And using these two examples, we'll have a look at those ideas and hopefully give you some more choices for your projects. Okay, but we'll start with the beginning. We'll start with just what we can do on the surface with a Bezier path or a line in Motion. Okay, so I have here a 3-point path, and I am going to use keyframes here to animate this. Just going to bend it and drop it back down again. Okay, so we see just on the surface immediately with Motion's tools we can animate a path bending. But the issue is that this is good for a very narrow range of animations because we have no interpolation options in the keyframe editor here. Everything is locked in as linear. So in theory, we should be able to animate something like this. But as we are limited to a linear interpolation, it's just not a good option. It's good for very quick, rapid movements. It's something I depend on for various projects. So to get something better than this, we're going to look at this option, which is a path. Let's see, where are we at? I've got a couple here. Let's look at using lines with preserve width turned on. Okay, let's start with the horizontal layer so we can do what we did before, but check out something better. I'm just going to grab the path, and with the control handles, I'll put a bend in it. Now, if I left click, I'm likely to nudge the point, so I'm going to right click, grab the handle. I've already set it to smooth. Let's put a bend in there and let's animate this. Okay, I'm going to start from 1 on the Y scale and animate back to 120 and back down to 1. Okay, so here's my keyframes. I've got full interpolation now. Same animation we did before, but with full interpolation. Let's just go ease both. And you'll see an issue here in that the width is being scaled as well. So to avoid that, we're going to use the preserve width function. So with preserve width on, the scale will affect the layer but not the width. Okay, so now we have something better than we had before. There's a couple of drawbacks to this. One is that this is good for animating on a single axis, so on the Y in this case. If we want to start moving the anchor point and animating the X to pull it in, gets a bit messy. In terms of animating the barbell, yeah, from here we may have enough to animate the barbell, but we want to go a little bit further and look at another option that's going to make synchronizing other layers a piece of cake. Okay, so yeah, one drawback, works good on one axis. Another drawback that may or may not come up is that, let's see, if we animate this, let's go from 120 to a negative value, minus 80, and then back to 120. You can see in this animation it should look cool, so we don't get a skipping frame. Okay, but depending on your speed curve, the frame might pick up the point where it hits 0, so to show what I mean, let's go to 0. Let's go from 120 to -80. So we are definitely going to cross, oh, what do I do? 120 to -80. Okay, so we cross the 0 threshold there. So what will happen is there will be that frame where 0 is picked up. It's a small setback, but this has come up for me from time to time, and it is annoying. So depending on what your plan is, just be aware of that. Better to animate toward 1 and away from 1. Alright, so let's have a look at the horizontal. So yeah, something like this might get us towards the barbell. And if we look at the vertical layer, we'll get closer to the articulating finger. Alright, let's grab the other path here. So this is vertical, and I've got the anchor point set down the bottom. Alright, let's put a bend in this like we did before. Just going to bring this point over here. Get something like this. Okay, so I'll just make sure preserve width is on. Alright, so from here now, if we work with the X scale, we can twist this around. I have the anchor point at the bottom, so if I control the Y, we can articulate it this way. So we can animate from, let's go -80 to, let's just go over to 120. And let's do something to the Y as well as we're doing that, which is the kind of animation we want in the finger. Okay, so with lots of micromanagement and lots of attention to every frame and every keyframe, you can go far with this. But again, like I said, a drawback is that this is good for a single axis, and when we want to work with both X and Y, we want to do something else. Okay, so I hope that gives you some ideas. Let's have a look at, you can see here we're going to look at the wave replicator for our barbell, and we're going to look at spiral replicator for the finger. Right, I'll just close this group and turn it off. So in this group, I'm ready to go with just a single shape layer. It is a rectangle with a width of 5 and a height of 40. Right, from here let's replicate this layer. So we can use the replicate function here. I'm just going to use the L hotkey on the keyboard, and we're going to set it to wave, which gives us a line replicator but with amplitude and frequency and damping as well. Alright, let's set the start point at -700 and the end point to 700, so we've got a layer that's 1400 across, and we will crank up the points to get something solid and hit a line angle. Alright, if we set the frequency at 1/2 here, we will get a bend, and our amplitude is what will bend our shape for us. I'm picking up some glitches and distortions there. It might just be because I'm screen recording. I'm not sure, but that's not normal. We can look past that. Alright, so from here to animate our shape, we're going to take the amplitude. Let's just oscillate it for now. Okay, so we can bend a shape. Note that with the align angle selected, how these ends here are matching in sync with the rotation, with the curvature of the path. That's one of the features that makes this a great option for something like the barbell. Okay, so of course we don't have to oscillate, we can keyframe this directly. So from here, let's have a look at how we would set up the barbell animation. Alright, I'm just going to drop the amplitude to 0 so we have it straight. Let's create a layer that we can then bolt on to the end, and it will follow the bending and the curvature. I'm going to just add a group here, and let's add a shape layer. Let's just do a single layer, something like this. I'm going to center that. Right, so there's a couple of things we can do here. Let's just call this one left. I'm going to duplicate this cell and call this cell left, and drag in this as the source. Right, so now I've got the full replicator populated with that layer. So we can do a couple of things. We can come into the opacity gradient, set constant on both sides, set this one here to 0, and dial it back until we just have a single instance of the layer. I didn't want to drag that stopper off. Okay, and turn off the source. So there we go. Now for the other side, we can go two directions. I can duplicate this layer, duplicate a cell again, drag in. No, we're just duplicating here. I can duplicate this cell again. Let's call this one right, and use this cell's, if I invert that, to go the other way around. That's one thing we can do. Let's look at another option. Okay, I'm going to remove the right and left cells, and instead I'm going to rename this replicator as the bar. I'm going to duplicate it and drag in the left one as the source for this one. And I'll call this one left. Okay. And I'll call this replicator left as well. So before we go any further, what we want to do is to start linking. So I'm going to take this one's amplitude and link it to the bar. And I think that's all we need to do for now. With this one on the left, I'm just going to change the points to 1. And then, if I want to get to the other side of it, I'm going to set the offset to -50. Cool. Now, let's duplicate that. It's already linked to the bar. Going to call this one right, and I'm going to take this cell And for the offset, we're going to set that to +50. Okay, so now from our main parent layer here, the replicator, right, we're ready to go. So from here, to do the barbell, I think you can see, right, let's turn off the example here. In the barbell, all I've done here is I've taken the main group and animated that on the Y. Then with the parent layer, the parent replicator, I've animated the amplitude. And this is just something I came up with for the purpose of demonstration. There are much better animators out there than me, including you, that could do a better job with something like this. Okay, so with a wave replicator, we can do a lot, you know, the barbell animation here, for example. Let's now move on to the articulating finger and what we can do with the spiral replicator. Let's just close up these groups that we aren't using and have a look in our spiral replicator group. Alright, so I'm starting again here just with a simple shape layer. It's a rectangle and this one has a width of 40 and a height of 5. Which is wrong, so I need to change that. It should be a width of 5 and a height of 40. Okay, so from here I'm going to use the L hotkey on my keyboard there, and we're going to set this to spiral. Then set your number of arms to 1 and turn on align angle. Okay, so let's crank up the points. Alright, so all the magic happens with this spiral replicator in these two parameters here, twists and radius. So radius is what we're going to use to grow it out and bring it back in. We'll just crank the points up a bit more so that we don't see the layers split up there. And twists. Right, I'm going to turn this 90 degrees so it sits flat like that. Okay, so with the twists, let's set it to 0 so we have a straight vertical line. And what I found is that I'm just using the Option key on my keyboard here to, let's see, is it Option or is it Control? It's not Control. I think it is Control. Option. Okay, if I have the Option key held down, then I can adjust this parameter in smaller increments. So you see that between about -0.12, 0.4, 0.5, we get an arc. And on the other side we get an arc. And after that range it's going to start to give us the beginnings of a spiral. So for something between this configuration and this configuration we can work really well. And this is the foundation for the finger. Okay, so from here let's take the twists from -0.12 over to, actually let's just oscillate this. Okay, so from 1, from a twists of 0, let's throw an oscillation on this. Oscillate at -0.12. And there we go. Alright, let's just speed that up a bit. So if we call back to when I was talking about the path with preserve width and animating by scale, I mentioned there that it doesn't work well on both axes, X and Y. So for the Y we've got our radius and it works much better than before. So let's set this to 650. And I'm going to drag this oscillation. Let's duplicate that, change the target, oscillate radius. This one is oscillate twirl. Radius. Okay. Let's have that at 100. Is that going to be cool? Alright. So, we get something better to work with. If I dump that on a half range. No, let's double the speed. Alright, let's set the speed to 50. Take off half range. I'm trying to get the bobbing effect here. If I double the speed on that, there we go. We get something bobbing up and down. Okay, so from here with the twirl, lots of things we can do, and lots of things I've done in plugins and other projects with the twirl replicator. It's a really cool thing. Okay, so from here, let's go and have a look at how we get to our articulated finger. Alright, sorry, my project file is a bit unorganized here. I'm just going to close this group down, open up the practical examples, turn that off, and we're going to start with this one here. Okay, so in our group here, I have a replicator, and like we saw before, I'm working with the twists. To wag the finger, and the radius to control the extension of the finger. This is a replicator sitting on some edited shapes, and there's a mask there. Let's see, so I'll just turn the replicator off. I use Adobe Illustrator with a script to export motion shapes. I have Pixelmator Pro as well for the same tasks. They're both good at the same thing, but they do things a little bit differently. I prefer Adobe for some things and Pixelmator Pro for the other. Okay, so I have these shapes that I brought in, and I just edited them to cut out that the pointer finger, and then I've brought my replicator in to act as the finger. So the replicator has a mask applied just to trim it out there. Alright, let's have a quick look at how I set this replicator up. I have my replicator source here. Let's start over with the source. It is just a circle shape with a radius of 37. So same steps we did before. I'm going to replicate it, just L on my keyboard there. Set that to spiral. No twists to begin with, one arm, and I'll rotate that 90. I'll use the radius just to extend that out, make it longer, and crank up the points until we get something solid. From here I added a stroke filter, filters border, stroke. I set that to black and cranked up the width to match as best I could the original shape layers. And from here it's just a matter of working with the radius and the twists like we saw before to get our animation going. If we come back down to the where are we? If we come back to the pointing cursor, if we look in here, I just have as the example the oscillation on the radius and the oscillation on the twists like I had before. So that is that. We've had a look at one of the reasons we started by having a look at what we can do with just keyframing points directly. We had a look at the animating by scale with preserve width. Then we had a look at the wave replicator for the barbell. And I'll just come back to the fact that replicators are great because you can add on these other layers by duplicating your replicators, and they will animate in tune with the curvature of your replicator as well. So saves you syncing up other layers to synchronize the position and the rotation. And if we were doing this, we'll probably need some X keyframes on there as well. The replicators are a really versatile tool. So I will put this a version of this project file up for you to download and check everything out. But I'm just going to jump in now to another project file and give you a look at our next tutorial, which is going to feature this hand cursor with the articulating finger. Alright, so I'm just in this other project here and I want to show you what we have coming up. So for the next 2 or 3 maybe tutorials, we are going to make this like and subscribe animation together. And as you can see, we've got the articulated pointing cursor hand as one of the main features. So as it comes in, you see I'm just using the twirl and the radius to animate a click there, a click on the like, and another click on the bell. I think before we handle everything together, I'm probably going to do an independent quick tutorial for animating the bell here. And we also want to do a little mini tutorial on how we get the subscribe to transfer to subscribed, all in the same text layer with one sequence text. So 1, maybe 2, 3. How about we do the bell and the sequence text all in one tutorial, and then we'll handle everything else in the next. Alright, hey, thank you for hanging around till the end, and I'll do my best to get this next tutorial up within the next week. Thanks for joining in. I'll see you for the next one.